Hey Internet, Eric here. Tonight's movie thought we are going to have a classic. Classic in the horror genre. Directed by a horror icon, gave birth to a horror icon, and among, countless sequels and merchandise, we are talking about the original 1984 classic, directed by Wes Craven, A Nightmare on Elm Street. And A Nightmare on Elm Street stars Heather Langenkamp. It stars Robert Englund, John Saxon, Ronnie Blakely, Amanda Wyss, Nick Corey, and Johnny Depp's first starring role. And we have a couple cameos by Lynn Shay and Charles Fleischer. Charles Fleischer, he was Roger Rabbit, of all people. Or the voice of Roger Rabbit. Wow. Like I said, directed by a horror icon, Wes Craven. Other than Scream, this will probably be the movie he will always be known for. And sadly, he passed away a while ago. And this also gave birth to Freddy Krueger, this guy here. And it made Robert Englund a horror icon, And if you're new to my channel, welcome. But I do give potential plot spoilers because I just like to randomly talk about the film. So you have been warned if you, for some fucking reason, haven't seen or at least haven't heard of A Nightmare on Elm Street. There we go. We're following four group of high school students. Heather Langenkamp plays Nancy. Amanda Wyss is Tina. Nick Corey is Rod. And then Glen is played by Johnny Depp. And we find out they're all having the same type of nightmare. They're all being stalked by a man. Burnt up man in a dirty red and green sweater. And he's got a, dirty brown hat, fedora. And he's chasing them with a glove that he made in his own workshop that's got knives at the end of it. And the basic plot is it's them versus Freddy. And what do they do to stop him from trying to kill them? Because apparently if he kills you in your dream, you die violently in the real world. And it comes down to, like I said, I've said spoilers, it comes down to a face-off between Nancy, Heather Langenkamp, and Freddy, Robert Englund. And there's this nice side story starring John Saxon and Ronnie Blakely as Nancy's parents, and you find out that they know who Freddy is because the reason he was burned, he was a child killer from the town, and he was arrested, got off on a technicality, and this vengeful mob of parents, them included, burnt him alive. And he is now getting his revenge supernaturally on the parents through their kids' dreams. Now, if that isn't creative, I don't know what is. And there's a little side story. I guess Wes Craven, he read a newspaper article or something about a young boy in the Philippines, I think it was the Philippines, who was having these violent nightmares. And he swore that he would die if he went to sleep. So he'd been up for days. He would, live on caffeine pills. He would have a coffee pot hidden in his bedroom, which there's a nod in A Nightmare on Elm Street. Nancy actually is hiding a coffee pot under her bed, And eventually he finally passes out due to exhaustion. His dad takes him up to bed. And then they go to eat their dinner or something. And they hear him screaming bloody murder. They go in and he's having a violent attack, in his sleep. And he dies right then and there. So that intrigued Wes, and he said, I can make a movie out of this. And he does. And he created a horror icon in Freddy Krueger, his own type of boogeyman. But what I love about A Nightmare on Elm Street, this movie, is first off, let's talk about the acting. All these teenagers are great actors. Heather Langenkamp is great. She's a very likable lead, very sympathetic, very smart. Amanda Wyss is there. She's pretty. She's a good love interest with Rod, who is Nick Corey. You believe her when she's terrified in these dreams because it's her who we're introduced to first. Nick Corey plays Rod. He's basically a hood, leather jacket, switchblade, that type of guy, criminal. He's good. Very let's just say, I'm not gonna say likable. I'm not entirely gonna say sympathetic, but there's a scene where, after Amanda Weiss's character Tina, she is violently killed. Um, of course, Rod is blamed for it because he's in and out of jail and this and that, and he was the last one in the bedroom with her when she was killed. And there's a scene where Rod is in hiding and he meets up with Nancy and he swears to God that it wasn't him that killed her, and you believe it. You see it in his eyes. So Nick Corey does a great job here. Johnny Depp is he's good as Nancy's boyfriend Glen, and he's got some one-liners that aren't terribly funny, but they aren't terribly bad. They're there. They give you chuckles, and he's so likable in this. I don't know. I mean, Johnny Depp doesn't show any promise. I mentioned in my Critters 3 review with Leonardo DiCaprio, he doesn't show the talent, of becoming like a superstar here, but he's very likable. And that's what's great. You're following these 4 characters, you like them all, they have great chemistry, and you care about them. Because as horror movies go on, you just go to see the fucking teens get slaughtered. You care about these teens, and that's a good thing to have in a horror film. We'll talk about Ronnie Blakely and John Saxton as Nancy's parents. They're divorced, so they have that tension. And you see that in their acting. John is the police chief, and he is, worried about Nancy because she's, always stuck in the middle of all these murders that are happening. So he's concerned of her safety, but he also has to be this hard-nosed detective, or lieutenant. He's this lieutenant, and trying to catch this killer. And Ronnie Blakely is good being a sympathetic mother, a loving mother, but an alcoholic too. I mean, there's a scene where Nancy knows Glen is next, and she can't get out because she's been locked in because her mother is drunk on the couch, thinking that, Nancy, you're going to get some sleep whether it kills you or not. Pun intended, obviously by Wes Craven. And it's great. There's some scenes where, eventually Nancy has to go to a sleep clinic because of all these nightmares. And that's where Charles Fleischer shows up. He's her doctor. And it's a really cool scene where they're monitoring her sleep, and then of course, you hear some scratching in her head. And what Freddy does with these claws, because he always takes the kids to his boiler room, he likes to take those claws and he likes to scratch them down the pipes. So you hear this noise. So you hear that in her mind when she's dreaming, she's shaking, having these convulsions. Eventually she wakes up, and Ronnie Blakely is freaking out because she has a white streak in her hair now, meaning Nancy, because of her fear. She's got a cut on her hand, so she's freaking out. Her daughter is hurt and bleeding. So you can see the care the mother has for the daughter. And with that scene, it's a cool thing that's where Nancy finds out, because she was fighting him in his dream. You don't see the dream that's happening, but she apparently grabbed Freddy's hat and brought it with her when she woke up. So she knows that she can bring Freddy into the real world. And that goes into the final confrontation. Speaking of, I love that sequence. I love the sequence where Nancy has got this book on how to make homemade booby traps and a survival kit, stuff like that. So you see her, it's a wonderful montage of her hanging a sledgehammer from her ceiling and tripwiring it, sawing holes into light bulbs and filling it with gunpowder and tripwires and stuff. Really cool scene, and you're wondering what the fuck's going to happen when she eventually brings Freddy into the real world and how these are going to come into play. So that's good foreshadowing. I love a lot of that. I love the way Wes shoots a lot of this. First off, this isn't a good picture of him, but you see Freddy's a burn victim, okay? He's got, got the folds in his skins and skeleton and stuff like that. what Wes does is he still, even though with all that makeup, he keeps Freddy in the shadows. He has close-ups on his eyes. There's a scene where he's stalking Nancy, and there's a close-up on his mouth, and his tongue's just, flickering. And it's just wonderfully shot and wonderfully creepy. And Robert Englund has such fantastic body language. He just stands there, just hunches his shoulder in a scene and looks at her and just moves his head. He looks like a fucking scarecrow in the background, and it's great. And, he has to rely on body language because his face is hidden. There's some fucking dust. Anyways, his face is hidden, so he requires on his eyes. He requires on, like I said, the body language, the way he holds himself. And he does a fantastic job. He makes Freddy scary because, as the series goes on, Freddy becomes kind of a joke. Here he's terrifying. He's great at stalking the girls. They're in danger. There's the dream sequence where he's stalking Tina. And Tina is outside and she's, walking down an alleyway. And you just see Wes shoots this wonderfully. You see a silhouette of Freddy down at the end of the alleyway. And Tina says, "Please, God." And then Freddy, puts the glove in front of his face and he says, "No, this is God." And the light is just perfect enough to light up the glove in that half of his face. And then you see her running away and you see Freddy, maniacally, running after her. Wonderfully shot. And there's a scene, in that where, Wes is so creative because in a dream you can do whatever the fuck you want. He has Freddy's arms stretch out, wall to wall, so there's nowhere for Amanda Weiss to go, Tina. So creative. The gore here in this film is fantastic. Let's not talk about the kills yet. Let's talk about Freddy. He's got some self-mutilation scenes just to disgust the girls. He's, cutting off his fingers in front of them and smiling as he's doing it. He takes his finger, his claws, and he scratches down the side of his belly. And you just see, pus and guts pour out and maggots. And he's just standing there with a smirk on his face. He loves tormenting and torturing and disgusting these would-be victims. And it's great because, once again, you rely on Robert Englund's facial expressions. And he sells it like a motherfucker. So good. But let's talk about the gore now with the kills. I won't say who dies how. I already said that Nancy's the lone survivor. Whatever. But there's a scene where someone is being attacked in their dreams. And they are being pulled all along. I'll go around, the frame of my iPad. Start in the bed and they get pulled all along the walls and over the ceiling, and you follow them as they're being hacked to bits and blood and, screaming, and then suddenly they're finally killed and they fall on the bed. That scene is fantastic. You see a close-up of the claw marks happening on the belly, the blood pouring out. There's a scene where someone is dragged into their bed, and a geyser, a volcano of blood is shooting out of the fucking bed. It covers the ceiling, covers the walls, and the character's parents come in and you just see the blood pouring down through the fucking doorway. And John Saxon and another one of the cops, they say, "Where's the coroner?" And the cop said he's been in the John puking ever since he's seen it. So fantastic practical effects. The way I guess Wes did the bedroom scene is the person being killed was literally in a set that moved. It was on pistons and it just moved, and they were acting, crawling along this set as it was moving, and then of course it made it look like they were on the ceiling. Fucking fantastic, practical, smart way to shoot a fucking film. The score here is creepy as hell. The score is great. It's an iconic score. Just go to YouTube or Google Nightmare on Elm Street original score. It's so great, so creepy, so scary, and it's just simple simple piano music. It's like, I think John Carpenter said it for Halloween. People weren't as scared of his original Halloween until he added in the music. And the music here is great. because it's intense when he's stalking these victims, and it heightens when the jump scares happen. One of my favorite use of the score is in the opening sequence with the credits. You see Freddy's feet walking. You don't see his face or anything. He's walking through his boiler room and he throws some tools on the table and he's making his glove, and suddenly you see him go like this to the camera and he points and pans to the camera and you have this big boom noise, and then a Nightmare on Elm Street. Fantastic use of camera shots, fantastic use of score. God. And like I said, great acting, great gore effects, great soundtrack. That fucking jump rope song. 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you. And it'll get stuck in your head because it's said like 2 or 3 times. And it's just creepy. You see little girls fucking doing their jump ropes to this song about a serial killer. 3, 4, lock your doors. It's about, staying safe because Freddy Krueger's out there. One of my favorite scenes is where Nancy has already found out who Freddy is, or she knows that it's Freddy that's stalking her. And Ronnie Blakely, her mom, takes her down to the basement. She tells her the whole story of what happened, and then she pulls like his knives. Like she took his glove, and from the murder scene, she hid him in the boiler. And it's a wonderful scene where Ronnie Blakely's so serious, and she looks at Nancy and she says, "Freddy can't hurt you, baby, because Mommy killed him. I have his knives." And you see the worry in her face where she thinks Nancy might just be going a little batshit crazy. And it's a great, great performance. I absolutely love Ronnie Blakely's performance here. John Saxon is good. Like I said, he's really good at being a protective father. And his beefs with Ronnie Blakely, his ex-wife. I can't praise the acting more. Now there's a couple things that I have to say are not good, that I cringe at every time I watch this film though. So it's not perfect, no matter how much I say I love this film. We have, like I said, Freddy's brought into the real world, and Nancy is now taking him on with her booby traps. She eventually knocks him down into the basement. Throws some gasoline on him, sets him on fire. It's a great burn. It's a long burn. He's running around. He slowly climbs up the stairs and then falls. It's a great burn. It's a long burn. But the problem is, you see in that burn, obviously you can see the pads on the stunt actor's body. And you can see the bad mask. You can see how it's not... I mean, I don't care that you know it's not fucking Robert Englund under here. But you see the mask, you see it's, a safety mask, to protect the actor underneath from getting burned. And it's just so visible, it looks so bad. And I don't know if they only could do it in one take. And that's why, that's what's in the film. But it's so noticeable. It takes me on every time. I'm just like, Freddy suddenly gained 50 pounds and his face he looks like the Elephant Man now. It's just so bad. And the final part, the only other part I don't like about this film is the ending. Now, one thing A Nightmare on Elm Street, the entire series is known for, at the end of every film, they throw in a way for you to know that Freddy is not dead. Evil never really dies. And they're all really clever. Part 3 was kind of a cop-out. It wasn't that great. But here, I won't spoil it because this is probably one of the best ones. What he does to Nancy is great, very creative. I loved every second of it. And that is great. But what happens is, what's happening to Nancy is happening in front of Ronnie Blakely's character. And Freddy gets Ronnie Blakely. That last jump scare at the end. I like how he gets Ronnie Blakely. But the final execution of what he does to her is so badly edited, I cringe every single time. It's so unbelievable. The special effects are so shitty. It's so noticeable. It's just horrible. I wish they would have ended the film with what happens to Nancy and then the initial jump scare that happens to Ronnie Blakely. Fade to black. That would have been perfect. What they did with the final oomph, I guess, to Ronnie Blakely, I'm just like, it looks so bad. It's just like the burn scene. It takes an intense situation, and with their flub in it, you're just like, no one cares because it's so bad. Hated it. Hated apps. Like I said, I love the end. I love where they prove how Freddy's still alive. But the final execution is just so goddamn horrible. I can't. I cringe every time I fucking see it. It's a shitty way to end, effects-wise, a great film. And that's what I'm going to say here. A Nightmare on Elm Street is a great film. A great horror film. Like I said, full of great acting, likable characters, good blood and guts. A great, scary killer before he became a fucking joke by, Freddy's dead. And great score. The scene, all I'm going to say is the body bag scene. That was a great scene. Love that. Love that scene. The use of the blood and the worms and like the centipede. I love the screw your past scene. No running in the hallway. I won't spoil that. That's great. The creativity in this film is done really well. It's really good. And if you've never seen A Nightmare on Elm Street, what the fuck? Where have you been? Go out, get this, pop it in, get the one with the bonus features. There's some good shit on this, nice documentary, commentary, whatever. I don't like talking bonuses anyway. But yeah, highly, highly recommend Nightmare on Elm Street, the best of the series, and there's 7 of them, a remake and a crossover with Jason Voorhees. So saying the term where the original is the best definitely holds up the Nightmare on Elm Street. So there you go. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, tell your friends, tell grandma, tell anybody, whatever. Don't tell anybody. I don't really care. I have like my 3 loyal subscribers and commenters. If you like what you see, comment below. This whole spiel gets old after a while. But in the end, I will say cheers and... oh, shit. Like Freddy who will make you never sleep again. Beware the boogeyman. I don't know how to fucking end this. Go watch Nightmare on Elm Street. Take care.